Hi, everyone. This is Pastor Bob with the Sunday Sunset Reflection for August 23rd. Well, I trust your heart found a sense of rest as we considered resting in God alone in Psalm 62 in both the Sunday devotional and the in-person worship service at 2310 Nursery Road. Psalm 62, where David found he couldn't put his trust in man, for they turned against him, but what he did find in the midst of trouble was rest in God alone. Listen to the words of the chorus as found in verses 1 and 2, and again in verses 5 through 7. For God alone my soul waits in silence. From him comes my salvation. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be greatly shaken. And then verses 5 through 7. For God alone, O my soul, wait in silence, for my hope is from him. He alone, or he only, is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be shaken. On God rests my salvation and my glory and my mighty rock. My refuge is God. That chorus, God alone, is worth thinking about this week, no matter what you face. In difficulty or in disappointment or anything really, just to set your mind at rest by focusing on how God is with you. There is rest for your soul. Another great highlight in Psalm 62 is what we considered in the crescendo in the psalm, as David declares, the final word in verses 11 and 12. Once God has spoken, twice I have heard this, that power belongs to God, and that from you, O Lord, belongs steadfast love, for you will render to man according to his work. Notice, God has all power and all authority, and of course, you can rest in him. And God is the source of steadfast love, and his steadfast love is personified, of course, in the Lord Jesus Christ. So, of course, you can rest in that steadfast love, which, as Lamentations chapter 3 says, never ceases. And last of all, God is the judge, and therefore we can rest in him to take care of whatever the enemy is doing in our lives. He has the final say. Back to verses 2 and 6 then, where it says that David found God to be his rest, his joy, his salvation, his rock, and his fortress. Good stuff from Psalm 62. I trust that you'll take time to read it again throughout this next week. Now, next week, we'll conclude this year's summer series in Psalms as we look at Psalm 63. The following week, Heath Glanton will be preaching on September the 6th, and we'll begin a series through the book of Acts the following week. Looking forward to that. Well, as we talk about a quick word here about our reading through the Community Bible Reading Journal, which has us taking us through the books of Esther and Revelation currently. Have you noticed there in the book of Revelation, a little phrase found in Esther chapter 4? Now, I realize that is coming up, I think, in tomorrow's reading, so I want you to notice it in particular. It's when Mordecai, Esther's cousin, calls on Esther to go to the king on behalf of her people who were destined to be executed by a law that a wicked man by the name of Haman convinced the king to sign. So Esther, being a little reluctant to go before the king, for anyone who came to the king without being summoned by the king, and to whom the king did not hold out his golden scepter, they were killed. So Esther, in her reluctancy, is reminded by Mordecai that she is where she is for such a time as this. Oh, that's good stuff there, and I trust that you stay tuned on Monday for that, and stay tuned to what we call the Power Break blog, and more on that in a moment. I like to say this often, as we are truly blessed to have the gifts and talents that we do in our church. We may be a small church, but God has certainly blessed us, including, of course, Rick Richard, who is teaching our Sunday morning Bible study, a 13-week lesson series on the biblical view of depression. Look for the video tomorrow afternoon as it's processed and placed on our YouTube channel, for which there is a link on our website, ccpconline.org. You can, of course, join us on Sunday morning at 9:30 and catch up the videos, or if you can't make it, you can look at the video and check out the YouTube channel. Okay, it's time for our Westminster Confession of Faith Shorter Catechism question of the week. We're up to question 17. What happened to man in the fall? Man fell into a condition of sin and misery. Let's notice a few scriptures that the Westminster Divines use to back up this answer in the Shorter Catechism. First of all, from Genesis chapter 3, verses 16 through 19, To the woman, he said, I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you. And to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which I commanded you, that you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it in the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat of the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, and you shall return to the ground, for you were taken out of it, and you shall return. You are dust, and to dust you shall return. And then in verses 23 and 24, therefore the Lord sent him out from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he was taken. He drove the man out, and at the east end of the Garden of Eden he placed the cherubim and a flaming sword that turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. Again, the question of this week, what happened to the man in the fall? The answer, man fell into a condition of sin and misery. Good teaching from the Westminster Confession of Faith, Shorter Catechism. Now, Lord willing, Jan and I will be here with another pastor's chat this next Tuesday. In case you cannot tell, Jan and I really have a good time recording that video each week, and trust that you have enjoyed it. And as we stay connected with people through the pastor's chat, we really enjoy the questions. We've had some good questions recently, but there's always room for some more. If you submit a question and we use your question on the pastor's chat, you win a croissant from Flying with Jerome. So send us your questions via Jan's email, or of course message her on Facebook. Well, consider joining us for the Zoom prayer meeting on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. It's a great way to keep in touch no matter what your level of participation, even if you're there just to participate by watching. It's good to be part of it and connect with other members of the flock as we meet together by Zoom. And consider joining us then to share your own burdens. If you have a burden and need a special prayer, let us know about that. Also, I just want to mention, some people asked me, said, Bob, did you change your clothes for the pastor's chat, or excuse me, for the Sunday Sunset Reflection? Because they notice that I'm wearing one thing if they're watching the Sunday devotional, and then I'm wearing something else in the Sunday Sunset Reflection. Well, here's the story. I record the Sunday devotional on Wednesdays, and it really takes a lot out of me. And of course, I have to bring take my clothes, change them on Wednesday, and they're not any good for use on Sunday. In other words, I sweat a lot. Okay, so this is what I was wearing Sunday morning for our in-person service. Anyway, speaking of connecting, I encourage you to check out my weekly Power Break blog this week and each week. Now this week it's called For Such a Time as This, and I've taken it from the book of Esther, chapter 4. Check it out. My weekly blog is also published each Monday on my website, bobbrubaker.com, or you can subscribe on my website to receive it by email at home on Monday mornings. And while you're at my website, check out my podcast called the Power Break Podcast, which you can find anywhere you download podcasts or listen via the link on my website, bobbrubaker.com. Well, thanks for joining me today. This is Pastor Bob with the Sunday Sunset Reflection. I trust that you'll have a great week. Godspeed.